Magu Zian Sho, divine marijuana brings immortality. So, I'm back. And on today's video is part one of the art of Bagua, or the 8 trigrams. Oh, anyway, I can't see it on. I can't see it. I can't. Oh, the 8 trigrams of Ma Gu Fu. Now, what is Ma Gu Fu? Well, it is the actual name of Kannabis Kung-Fu. Cannabis, obviously, even though I spell it with a K, is American English or whatever, and Kung Fu is Chinese. So, Magu is actually translated as divine cannabis. So Magu Fu is divine cannabis Kung Fu. Now I have added onto this channel Cannabis Kung Fu Dao. So people get an idea that we're going to be talking about cannabis. We're going to be showing and talking about Kung Fu. And we're going to be talking about and showing the Tao. Yes, all that's all it is right there. And I'm making those videos right now. So right now we're right, no, I apologize, we're right here. And this time I have it here so I can show it to you. Bam! I also designed this. I made the Chinese characters and all that. So yes, that's me when I was younger in the center. And I'm representing yin yang. And those Chinese characters around me are the names of the trigrams, and these are the trigrams. So there are 8 trigrams around me. Looks like I'm vibrating, don't it? There are 8 trigrams, and those 8 trigrams are what is called the Bagua, or the 8 trigrams. I'm like, is there another name? Didn't I just say 8 trigrams? But anyway, so I made that for my own purposes. You can see I didn't even have a beard. I had short hair, and my hair was black. So this is a while back. But on my logo, you will also see on the logo of the temple. Now you see on this logo, I have the 8 trigrams again surrounding the Ankh. So on this logo, which is the logo, the overall logo for the temple, church, house, combines the Taoist 8 trigrams with the yin and yang, or yin yang, at the center, but it's an Ankh. And of course we have the hemp. That's the hemp leaf, actually. I won't say the cannabis leaf. The hemp leaf is the hemp is the plant that makes all these different things. So that's that logo with the 8 trigrams. And this is my Kannabis Kung-Fu Tao logo with the fist representing the yin and yang. I'm trying to stop saying and. Yin yang. Yin yang is one thing, like one side of the penny and the other side of the penny. So my fist is representing yin yang. The 5 leaves represent the 5 elements. And then again on the outside I have the trigrams, the 8 trigrams, or the bagua. There's 2 different ways to pronounce it. You might see if you study up on this. I spell it ba-gua, ba being 8 and gua being, they say it translates as trigrams, but if it was tri, it would say san, S-A-N. So it probably translate more closely to 8 symbols. Okay? So, instead of using my teacher's book today, I'm going to use my book. That's because it is now for sale. $17. You might notice everything adds up, or a lot of stuff adds up to 8. So I'm like, well, I don't, it's too cheap to charge $8, and it's too much to charge, you know, what's it, 20, whatever makes 8. So 17, because this is an excerpt of my book. My book is much thicker, but when I start making some money, I will have it, you know, typed up and published and all that good stuff. So, contact me for the book. Just about everything is in here to actually put this form that I'm getting ready to start teaching. Everything is in here to know the system and the form, but you got to do some work on your own. So, that was my little plug-in for the book. I also wanted to talk about, when I was talking about yin-yang, like way back there, I made another 2 videos, and now I'm on this one. So the one thing I left out in the yin-yang is the middle, because you have 2 sides, right? Even though it'd be the same side of one thing, but there's light on this side, and there's thus a shadow on this side. Thus, that's what yin-yang basically meant in the first place. But what's in the center of the yin and yang? See that line going down the center of yin-yang? That's, when we talk about that, that's when we talk about be like smoke. There are specific techniques that use that S shape, this way, as opposed to just a circle and all that. You also have that S shape, even though I got it backwards up here. It's like the wave. It's like, you know, a wave, like be like water type of thing. So that's the S shape. So we'll talk about that when we show those techniques. Also, what I wanted to talk about, well, this is, as usual, this will be 2 parts. I'm getting ready to talk about the 8 trigrams and show you the 8 stances, and then tomorrow, like when it's light outside, I'll actually go out. I'll actually go out in the back and do the 8 stances and 8 fists of Kannabis Kung-Fu Tao. So, let me show the 8 stances. Now, what happens is, what I'm getting ready to show tomorrow is, now we're just talking about the trigrams, right? You either have a solid line or you have a broken line. The broken line is yin and the solid line is yang or yang. So when they put three of these together, all you can get is 8 different trigrams. So each one of these trigrams represent a force of nature. So in the Wu style Tai Chi, we already had the upper, or the hands. They had the 8 trigrams in the hands. But in Tai Chi, all Tai Chi, they put the 5 elements in the legs, the stances. And it didn't make sense to me because I'm like, well, it's more stances than 5 in the form. So I put 8 stances below and 8 stances above, which creates the 64 movements. So in my book, the first movement, or the first stance, I call this, what I'm about to show you, I call this the mother form, because what I just explained is that there's the element or the trigram on top, and then there's a trigram in the stances. We say the stance first because in Kung Fu you start out with the stances first before you even, but since we don't have all that much time, we're going to do both at the same time. So the first 8 movements are called the mother form. So the first one, let me take this off so I can just take this off and show you. The first one is called heaven. Now that's the actual name of the hexagram. Once you put 3 above and 3 below, it becomes a hexagram. So heaven above and heaven below is that stance. The first stance in this Kung Fu is one-legged stance, because in difficulty is probably one of, if not the most difficult stance, because if it's about kicking in any whatever direction, you stand on one leg, and then you have to, when you kick someone, you have to be able to hold your balance. So it's a difficult maneuver, and we start out the first form. And when I get into it, I'll explain why kicks are heaven below. Now above, like I said, we got the trigrams from the Tai Chi already. The biggest difference I change is that in the Tai Chi use an open palm, so in our system we're going to use the fist. So the second hexagram is earth. Earth over earth. So now heaven can be considered yang, or the sky, or even the stars, whereas earth is just as it say, earth. So you see all of the lines are broken lines, whereas in the first hexagram all of the lines were solid lines. And the stance that I'm doing is earth below, or earth stance, and earth above. So what I was about to say before is that right now I'm saying the actual names of the elements, but of course, since we are Kannabis Kung-Fu, we have our own names. So, but I'll talk about that again when I'm actually showing the 8 fists and 8 stances. So after earth stance, we go into fire stance, or fire stance and fire fist. Fire stance, yeah. So fire stance, you can see, is the opposite of what we just did, which is sitting back, or the earth, or earth is receptive. That's why I'm sitting back. Now we're going to get to water. That's a different type of thing. So fire is total yang, going forward with power. And that hexagram is two fire trigrams put together. So it's fire stance below and fire stance above. Then we move to water. So what I did with these the 8 movements in the mother form, everything is the opposite of the last movement. So heaven and earth, fire and water, opposite. So water is sinking. So my stance reflects sinking, and the punch or fist reflects sinking. So again, you see the hexagram has a trigram for water, which has a solid line at the center of 2 broken lines. So we just double that. And basically all I did was match up the stances, because again, in Tai Chi, all styles of Tai Chi, they put the 5 elements, of which I put in the hands. They put the 5 elements in the stances, but I had realized that there are more than 5 stances. There are some stances that don't fit into the 5 elements. So I just made the stances based on the explanation of the trigrams. So that's fire and water. I like saying water. So now, opposite of water, which is, when they talk about water, when they say water, as we're going to get to the lake now, which is a different type of water. When they talk about water, they talk about flow, like be like water, my friend. So the opposite of my friend is mountain. Whereas water is about flowing, the mountain is about stillness. And you either got to go around a mountain, you got to dig through it, or you got to climb it and go over it. So why I'm explaining that is because these are powers. These are the 8 powers of not only Tai Chi, but also our form. They call them the 8 powers. So when you're thinking mountain, or when you do a mountain technique, that's what you're in your mind, and your body becomes like a mountain. I'll get into that. So mountain is a side stance. And again, right next to me is the hexagram for mountain. Now, we're going to do the opposite. A mountain is still immovable, but the next form is wind. Wind is opposite because it's what's called transient. It's always moving. It could move like a soft breeze, or it could move like a hurricane. Or you could be making wind and stink everybody. Oh, that's a whole nother wind. Oh no, it's still, anyway. So I'm going to show again on part 2, I'll show the actual stance and the fists. So on this video, I'm going to separate them. I'm going to do the stances, because that's what you do in Kung Fu. You learn your stances first, and then I'm going to go show the fists that go with each stance. And then when we move on to that square piece by Bruce Lee, then we're going to do what I'm showing you now, the mother form all, doing the fists and the stances together. So I said mountain and I showed wind, right? I gave some wind to you, didn't I? So now, from wind, we talk about lake. Now, this is also a water trigram, but as opposed to the water trigram, a lake trigram is about water that is still. So if you can think of a lake, you can think of when you have still water, things grow in it, and algae and all kinds of fish or whatever. Well, fish is in both, but it's still water. But, and you can see a reflection in the lake. But it's dangerous because at the center it might be deeper than what you can swim out of. They try to get that idea across. So for lake, I have twist, what I call, well, I call it twisted stance. I was trying to think of the actual name, but I guess it would be the lake stance and the lake fist. So, lake is about being calm and still. So the opposite of lake would be thunder. Kind of like thunder. When you think of thunder, what comes along with that is lightning, and that this energy is about lifting you up. So those of you who already know some Kung Fu will notice the form, or this mother form, started out with a one leg stance, and I'm kind of square here. We don't actually, it looks kind of square, and that's the low stance. But you might notice that I do the horse stance last, because this is the last movement of the 8th thunder. So from there we do some movements, and then we do stance work. So that's why I'm in, all Kung Fu starts out with the horse stance practice. In the old days in China, they made you do that for a year or whatever, just standing, before you even learned anything about, hand movements. But again, this is not the old days China. It's America, and those of you who come here need to know how to fight in between light and the bold. So, when you take the 8 fists, and say you take the first one, heaven, and you put heaven on each of the 8 stances, and you do that with each of the 8 fists, you get 64 hexagrams. And that's what my form is based on. So it's basically just those 8 movements I showed you, but you just, mix and match. So you have 8 stances and you have 8 fists. So the only number you can get is 64. And 64 is a deep number. Like, you got 64 squares on a checkerboard and all that type of stuff. So here are the 64 hexagrams, or the Book of Changes, I-Ching. I-Ching Tao, the way of I-Ching. So these are the 64 hexagrams. Yeah, those are hexagrams. So you can see that it's about a binary code. It is not about, this is not a god, or it's not even a divinity, it is about forces of nature, but the names of them are not even Zeus and all that. These are binary codes. And I mean, in this day and time, you know, computers taking over, maybe we should kind of like start talking binary or something. I don't know. Do you? Here you go. Talk binary. These are binary codes. The crazy thing about it, what I'm going to talk about in a couple of videos, that square down here, after I get past that, is actually showing you how this is also the same process or the same, everything on this paper right here matches up to the 64 codons of DNA. Think about that for about 64 minutes. Alright, so that is the 8 trigrams. Now, how does the 8 trigrams get into the Kannabis Kung-Fu? Let me see, did I write something down? 8 stances, 8 fifths, mountain 8. So, I'm not, I don't have it written down, so anyway. So the 8 trigrams is heaven, or when they say heaven, the translation, they actually mean the sky, or even, like I said, outer space, like the stars and moon and all that. So that's what they mean by heaven, not the place you go believe in and all that when you're dead. So heaven and earth are always first, because in between is, like I was showing, in between heaven and earth is you and me. So heaven is considered electric and earth is magnetic. So you are bio-electromagnetic beings. Oh, we getting ready to get deep. So heaven and earth, fire and water, mountain and wind, lake and thunder. And I guess tomorrow I'll also go into just the way when you be smoking that stuff, you be like, oh, there are 8 parts to the fist too. 8. Let me see. There's a part right there. Those 2 knuckles. That's 1 punch. Then that. So I broke it down to 8 parts of the fist that you use in the 8 fist techniques of the form of no form. Yeah, so that's what I'm breaking down now. I call it the form of no form, based on basically Bruce Lee's teachings of no form. But he had a form before he had no form. So I was like, okay, by making a form, which is based on what I just showed you, the 64 hexagrams, but actually, since it comes, you learn a form, but since it comes from the book of changes, you'll be able to change the form up after you learn the first form. Like I said, the only thing that stays constant is heaven and earth. Right? So those 2 create the other 62 hexagrams. But, well, I'll talk about that, because I have a wall hanging where you'll be able to change up the form like you feel like it. But it's always the same form, because there's only 8 fists and 8 stances. So that's pretty much it. I'll talk about the art of networking, or DAOnet, cannabis, or private, cannabis, health, and social. Dagnabbit, I screwed that one up. On another video, I'll talk about the private cannabis health club and eco retreat. Yay! Yeah, I'll elaborate later, because it's already a half hour. And I think I talked about the 8 trigrams. And like I said, on this picture, you see me in the middle. I'm representing yin, which is the black legs, and yang, which is the white top. I missed that top. Somebody made that for me, but anyway. It's going now, Bates, and so am I. I'll see y'all in the next video, part 2 of the art of Bagua, or the 8 trigrams of Ma Gu Fu. Peace.